Captain Midnight.
So I originally had a completely different video planned for this week, and I'm sure I'll still get to it soon, but yesterday brought some news that I knew I just had to talk about. The creators of Avatar the Last Airbender have been tapped by Nickelodeon to head up Avatar Studios, a new division of Nick aimed at just producing Avatar content, and their first project seems to be an animated, theatrically released film. This is all huge news, especially after the pair decided to ditch the live-action Netflix show. So that's what I wanted to talk about this week. What has me excited, what has me nervous, and obviously the huge possibilities for the future of the Avatar universe.
There comes a time in every journey when you realize there's no turning back.
So my first reaction to this news was definitely excitement. I mean, I love Avatar, and it's easy to picture more great stories told with those characters and universe. But there's definitely some trepidation too. This move makes a lot of sense for Nick. The show has gained a lot of popularity since landing on Netflix, and its reputation has only continued to grow. Obviously recognizing that, they're trying to turn it into their own brand silo, a model that Disney uses for its biggest properties like Star Wars and Marvel. For better or worse, that is what Avatar is being turned into. Now, you could see that very cynically, in that Nick is definitely milking Avatar and Korra for everything they're worth. But if the projects that come from that are good, or preferably great, I don't have a huge issue with that. Still, before going over all the stuff that I am excited about, I think it's worth mentioning the potential downside of this. If they're gonna make more Avatar stuff, I want it to be something that people are excited and passionate about making, not something they have to make because they just need a new Avatar product to exist. We'll see how well the studio is able to handle that, but for now, I'll remain cautiously optimistic. So all of that being said, there is a movie in production right now, and it's hard not to be excited about that. Although there were no details given beyond the fact that it's happening. So, okay, I'm gonna make a prediction right now. One that could honestly be proven wrong next week for all I know, but I guess I'll go for it anyway. I'm pretty sure that this movie will be about Aang and the rest of the Avatar cast. That just seems to be the safest bet, and the thing that would get the most amount of people excited. After all, theatrically released animated films are huge risks, and I'd be surprised if they bet the farm on a new Avatar, or a lesser known one like Kyoshi. Korra is also a possibility, but I feel like they'd want to start with the most commercially successful series. I can see some in the comments saying, but they already finished Aang's story, which is understandable. But with the comic book continuations, I think both Nickelodeon and the creators of the show itself have shown a willingness to continue that story. They've been okay with using those characters after the show's finale in those comics and in Korra, so I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be okay with it now. Now, the obvious move would be to adapt the comic books into a film, but I'm gonna go ahead and say they shouldn't do that. Like, will that make some fans mad? Sure. But in general, I think the whole team should have more artistic freedom to do what they feel is right. And while I enjoyed those comics, I don't think there's any reason why they should feel trapped by them and forced to do a very literal adaptation. Now, maybe they could pick and choose from the best ideas of those books, but in general, I think they should just do what feels right for the very different medium that they're working in. And this has happened with beloved shows in the past. When X-Files returned, they didn't adapt the IDW Season 11 comics, they made their own Season 11. Which, granted, maybe isn't the best example since those reboot seasons were pretty bad, but still, at the end of the day, I don't think too many fans would mind if they create a new story for Aang and the crew, instead of sticking with what was established already in the more niche graphic novels. So this might sound a little random, but something I would love to see from an Avatar film franchise is something like how the Before Sunrise movies handled time, but in animated adventure form. Which sounds pretty weird now that I've said it out loud, so I should probably explain. Richard Linklater's Before series follows one couple, Jesse and Celine, and picks up with their relationship once a decade or so as we see how they've grown and changed through the years. It's a really great trilogy that I highly recommend. And I would love a film series that kinda checks in every 4 or 5 years or so with Aang, Katara, Zuko, and the rest as they deal with different phases of life. Now, Korra has already kind of set in stone where these characters end up, but there is still a lot of time and events to fill in between, and there's a lot of possibilities of what they could do with that time. Though, I'll admit that I do kind of wish that Korra had given them more runway to work with, instead of having to meet a predefined fate that we already saw in that show. Even with those limitations in mind though, I think there's a ton that they could do with the film. Watching the Avatar gang adjust to their new roles and step up to life after the Fire Lord could be really interesting. And I especially think there's a ton of potential for Zuko, who was used really well in the post-series comics. But that movie seems to be just the beginning of what Avatar Studios is doing. I think there's going to be a lot of film and TV projects to come, and I'm really curious to see what those look like. Adapting Kyoshi has been brought up online a lot, and that book ended up being quite a bit better than I was expecting, so I would definitely be interested. Though, honestly, it's the new stories created out of whole cloth just for animation that I'm really excited about. And one thing I would love to see, especially with an entire studio at their disposal now, is projects created with very different art styles in mind. Like telling a story of one Avatar in a style reminiscent of like Over the Garden Wall, or one done in a more traditional anime style. The possibilities there to tell a variety of Avatar stories with all different tones and looks is just endless. I think that's a really important part of keeping this new studio feeling fresh. Of course we like the style of Avatar and Korra, but not flooding us with projects done in that exact same way will make it still feel like events when they do roll around. Because if they're going to build a massive universe out of this, the ability to work in different tones and even genres will be really important. So yeah, this is not my longest video, but I wanted a chance to talk about this big news and hear what you all had to say in the comments. Like, what's your ideal Avatar project? Do you think this new studio is a good idea, or should they have just left those shows in the past? I'm really interested in everyone's opinions on this because I know there's a ton of them out there. You know, I really don't talk about the channel itself much on here, but I want to thank everyone who's subscribed through the years. I just hit 400,000 subscribers recently, and that's just crazy to me. It really doesn't feel like that long since I uploaded my first video in 2017, and I just never could have imagined everything that's happened since then. Seriously, it means a lot, so thank you. Also, I have no sponsorship this week, but I did want to give a quick shout out to my editor, Stolly111. He's got a video on Cyberpunk 2077 and Run the Jewels that's really good, and I will put a link to that down below. Again, thanks for watching, and I will see you next week.
Here's a special tip for the fellas and girls who have not already joined Captain Midnight's new 1940 Flight Patrol. You'd better hurry up and join at once, because there's a big adventure ahead. The thing to do now is to get started, because we're going to have not only barrels of fun, but loads of free gifts and prizes too.